Welcome to today's deep dive. It is Saturday, March 2026. And if you are tuning in today, we actually know exactly the kind of person you are.
We really do. You're the learner.
Exactly. You are that person who just constantly feels the need to cut through the absolute avalanche of daily noise. All the endless notifications, the hot takes on social media, just to find the actual signals that matter.
Right, because maybe you're prepping for a massive strategy meeting next week, or maybe you're trying to figure out where to allocate your own investments.
Or maybe you're just insanely curious about how the machinery of the future actually works. But the point is, you want to be well informed, but you definitely do not want to feel overwhelmed by like an hour of dry academic jargon.
Which is nobody's idea of a good Saturday.
No, definitely not. And that is our exact mission today. We've got a really fascinating stack of interconnected sources on the table. Specifically, it's 3 brilliant articles published on the blog Netizen by the author Paramendra Kumar Bhagat.
Really incredible pieces.
Yeah, they are. The pieces are titled Spotting the Next Unicorn. The Next Solara. From Unicorns to Solaras, and Building a Solara. And together, they outline this profound tectonic shift in the startup and venture capital world.
We are essentially looking at the definitive death of the unicorn era.
Right. The death of the unicorn and the dawn of what he calls the Solara.
It's a massive shift. And honestly, the core premise here is really about language, because the language and the metaphors we use, they actually shape the scale of our imagination.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're using outdated terms to describe success, you are likely aiming at completely the wrong targets. The ceiling for global innovation hasn't just, bumped up a little bit. It has fundamentally shifted into the stratosphere.
It's a whole new game.
It is. And if you don't update your mental models to reflect this new reality, you're going to be left analyzing the future using the metrics of the past, which is a really dangerous place to be, especially right now.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the term unicorn is something literally everyone listening to this is familiar with. I mean, it was coined back in 2013 by the venture capitalist Aileen Lee.
Right, to describe a privately held startup valued at $1 billion or more.
Exactly. And I want you to put yourself back in 2013 for a second. She chose the word unicorn because hitting $1 billion was practically magic back then.
It was unheard of.
Right. These companies were as rare as mythical beasts. It was just mind-boggling that a small team in a garage could build a software product, scale it globally, and hit that 10-figure mark.
But if we look at the reality today, right now, in 2026...
There are well over 1,000 of these so-called unicorns globally. They're literally everywhere.
They're completely commonplace. The magic has entirely worn off.
Yeah, $1 billion valuation is just no longer the pinnacle of startup achievement.
Yeah.
Honestly, for a certain class of tech company, it's almost a baseline expectation for a successful run.
Yeah, you don't get a gold star for hitting $1 billion anymore. You just get to stay in the game.
Yeah.
And that reality brings us right to the core concept of our source material. Because the unicorn has become routine, we desperately need a new benchmark for the truly extraordinary.
Right.
So the author proposes the term Solara. A Solara is a $1 trillion company. But I want to be really clear here. It's not just a larger unicorn. It is an entirely different species of ambition.
A completely different animal. Or, well, not an animal at all.
Right, exactly. If a unicorn is a rare animal wandering through the forest, a Solara is a cosmic phenomenon. It's a star. It possesses immense gravitational pull, it radiates energy, and it fundamentally reshapes the entire economic solar system that's orbiting around it.
Which is such a powerful image. But introducing this concept naturally sets up the first major question we have to tackle today. Why did the billion-dollar moat suddenly become so easy to cross that we had to invent a completely new trillion-dollar category?
Let's dive right into that. Section 1 of our deep dive looks at the complete collapse of technical barriers. The starting line for building a company has fundamentally changed. Think about it. Building scalable software used to be this dark, mysterious art.
It really was.
It was restricted to a very elite class of highly trained engineers who understood back-end infrastructure, server loads, really complex code bases. But the author makes this brilliant historical comparison that really stuck with me.
The electricity one.
Yes. He says coding is undergoing the exact same transformation today that electricity went through in the early 1900s.
That is such a great analogy to break down for the listener. Let's visualize that for a second. In the late 1800s or early 1900s, if you wanted to run a massive textile factory, you couldn't just plug your machines into a wall.
No, a universal power grid just didn't exist.
Right. You had to physically build, manage, and maintain your own localized power generator on site. You needed dedicated engineers just to keep the lights on, the belts turning. It was a massive capital expense.
And a huge distraction from actually making textiles.
Exactly. But today, electricity is a universal, cheap, omnipresent utility. You literally just plug a cord into the wall and you don't give it a second thought. The heavy lifting is entirely abstracted away.
And the sources argue that software has followed that exact same trajectory.
It has.
And we really need to pause and consider why this matters to you. Whether you're building a company, investing in one, or just trying to understand where the market is going. Historically, if you look at the traditional venture capital checklist for investing in a startup, it always included things like a rock-solid engineering team, highly defensible intellectual property in the code, and a scalable software architecture.
That was the moat.
That was the moat. But if the tools to build a technically competent product are now universally available to everyone, then software alone is no longer a defensible moat. The barrier that historically separated the dreamers, the people with the ideas, from the actual builders has completely evaporated.
Right.
Having a functional, slick app isn't special anymore. It is just the absolute minimum cost of entry.
I want to push back on that slightly, or at least play devil's advocate for the listener who might be sitting there thinking, wait, is it really that easy now?
Sure.
Let's bring in the Instagram example from the text to make this concrete. Because when Instagram launched in 2010, it was revolutionary. To build that simple, elegant photo sharing app, you needed serious technical chops.
You really did.
You need to manage back-end infrastructure. You needed complex mobile development skills for iOS. You had to map out cloud architecture. And you needed deep scaling strategies just to ensure the servers didn't literally catch fire when 1 million people uploaded photos at the exact same time.
Which is a huge reason why Meta, well, Facebook back then, bought them for $1 billion. They bought the talent and the tech moat.
Right. Now contrast that with today. The text argues a teenager sitting in a suburban garage with a laptop and a credit card can recreate Instagram's core functionality in a single weekend.
I know it sounds hyperbolic, but it is fundamentally true. Obviously, that teenager isn't instantly managing 1 billion active users on day one. Scaling to that size still requires operational expertise. But getting the actual product to exist, building the minimum viable product.
That's the part that's changed.
Entirely. They can use no-code visual platforms like Bubble or Adalo to literally drag and drop databases, user profiles, image hosting workflows, all without writing a single line of traditional code.
Or even more powerfully today, they can use large AI models.
Exactly. From companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, xAI, or Google DeepMind to just automatically generate the code for them. You just type, build me an iOS app where users can upload photos, apply vintage filters, and follow each other. And the AI just spits out the foundational repository.
It's staggering.
This raises an important question. If building software is now this incredibly easy, what actually matters?
Right.
If the technical execution is effectively commoditized by AI and no-code tools, where does the real value lie? The answer, according to the sources we're unpacking, is that ambition, not just technical skill, is the new currency.
Ambition is the currency.
Yes. The next generation of massive companies won't win just by building a clever piece of software to optimize your inbox. They are going to win by attacking enormous, previously insurmountable global problems. And this requires a fundamental shift in how we define a startup's operational theater.
Yes. Which brings us right into this massive philosophical shift the author describes. We are talking about moving from bits not atoms to bits plus atoms.
This is a huge pivot.
Let's translate that for the listener. For the entirety of the 2000s and 2010s, the golden rule of venture capital was invest in bits, not atoms. And to be fair, the logic made perfect sense at the time.
It did. Pure software, the bits, scales effortlessly.
Exactly. Once you write the code for a digital calendar, distributing it to one person or 1 billion people has a near zero marginal cost.
Yeah.
You don't have to manufacture 1 million physical paper calendars.
On the other hand, physical businesses, the atoms, are brutal.
Brutal. Dealing with factories, supply chains, international shipping logistics, hardware manufacturing. It's incredibly slow, it's risky, and it's wildly expensive.
And if you look at the giants that defined that previous era, they perfectly reflect that bits not atoms philosophy. Google, Facebook, Dropbox, Salesforce, these are, at their core, pure digital platforms. They live on servers.
But as the author points out, the low-hanging fruit of the purely digital world has largely been picked.
Yeah, we don't really need another project management software.
Or another social network for our pets. The biggest, most existential opportunities of today do not exist solely on a server. Think about the actual physical reality around you right now.
Yeah.
Think about your morning coffee or the air conditioning running in your house. The problems humanity is desperately trying to solve right now are deeply physical. We're talking about climate change, the extreme fragility of our global food systems, aging healthcare infrastructure that simply cannot handle demographic shifts, and overburdened energy grids that fail during a heat wave.
You can't solve a failing power grid with just an app.
No, you can't. These are not pure digital problems. Software is absolutely still the brain. It's the necessary intelligence layer that makes sense of everything. But hardware, biology, and physical infrastructure must be the body. We have officially entered the era of bits plus atoms.
Exactly. And the examples in the text are staggering when you think about the scale. It's not just, hey, we made a better spreadsheet. We're talking about AI-driven energy optimization that is directly paired with smart grid hardware in the physical world, software talking to actual turbines and transformers.
Right.
We're talking about machine learning deeply integrated with biotech diagnostics, literally algorithms analyzing human biology, proteins, and DNA to synthesize new drugs.
It's incredible.
It's autonomous vehicles, which require a massive, flawless fusion of physical robotics, LiDAR sensors, and AI software, or carbon capture technologies that are powered by breakthroughs in advanced material science. It is the physical world being puppeteered, managed, and optimized by the digital world.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the problems are this complex, blending the digital and physical realms, what kind of person or team is actually capable of solving them?
That's the million-dollar, or I guess trillion-dollar question.
Right. Because let's be real, the stereotype of the Silicon Valley startup is 5 brilliant software engineers locked in a room with pizza, energy drinks, and noise-canceling headphones, coding until the sun comes up.
We all know that image.
But you cannot just throw 5 coders in a room and expect them to reinvent the global agricultural supply chain or design a new nuclear reactor.
You absolutely can't. And that is precisely the focus of the next section of our source material, which deals with the multidisciplinary startup and a concept the author calls global gravity.
Global gravity, I love that term.
Because these startups are tackling physical, planet-scale problems, they can no longer be narrowly technical. They have to be inherently multidisciplinary organizations from day one. Team dynamics, which, used to be brushed off as a soft skill for HR departments, is now a core vital competency for survival. The founder of a Solara is no longer just a brilliant coder head down in their laptop. They have to be an orchestra conductor.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
An orchestra conductor.
Yeah.
Because you were dealing with massive egos and completely different languages of expertise.
Yes. Think about how hard it is to get a traditional marketing team and an engineering team to agree on a launch date.
Oh, impossible.
Now imagine you're trying to get a theoretical physicist, a biotech regulator, and a machine learning engineer to collaborate on a single product.
Wow.
They literally speak different academic languages. They have completely different risk tolerances.
Yeah.
In these new organizations, the ability to synthesize these diverse fields, leadership itself, is the real technology.
The source gives some great specific breakdowns of what these teams actually look like in the wild.
Yeah.
If you're building a climate startup today, you don't just need full-stack developers. You need atmospheric scientists who understand weather patterns.
Yeah. You need chemical engineers to build the actual physical carbon scrubbers, machine learning specialists to model the data, policy experts to navigate brutal government regulations, and financial engineers to figure out the massive capital required to build a physical plant.
It's a massive undertaking.
Or look at a healthcare AI company. You're combining biomedical researchers, incredibly rigid FDA regulatory experts, clinical data scientists, and physical hardware manufacturers.
And because these systems, like energy grids and supply chains, inherently span continents, these companies have to be global by default. You cannot solve global shipping from a single zip code.
No.
And that geographic reality has completely decentralized the innovation ecosystem. Silicon Valley is still vital, of course. It still has massive capital concentration. But it's no longer the sole proprietor of the future.
Yeah. The author highlights how innovation is happening in a planet-scale laboratory. We're looking at major hubs in Berlin, Bangalore, Tel Aviv, Shenzhen, and Singapore. Ambitious founders are building companies that operate across these international networks simultaneously, drawing the absolute best talent from every corner of the globe.
Which means that for investors, or even just for you as a listener trying to spot the next big thing or decide where to work, identifying these founders is a completely different game.
It really is.
It's not about walking the halls of a specific elite university in California anymore.
Yeah.
That brings us to the psychology of the Solara founder. Identifying these visionaries is fundamentally a human exercise. The text highlights that they share very distinct psychological traits.
Yes.
The first is an absolute obsession with massive fundamental problems. They aren't chasing trendy ideas. They do not care about a minor workflow optimization that saves a middle manager 5 minutes a week.
No, they want to eliminate atmospheric carbon.
Or cure major diseases, or establish universal digital education.
Right. And to tackle problems of that sheer magnitude, they possess what the author calls a broad intellectual range.
This is crucial.
Why does intellectual range matter? Because true innovation almost never happens in the dead center of a well-established field. The center is crowded. Innovation happens at the edges, at the intersections of different disciplines.
Yeah.
These founders read widely across physics, economics, political science, philosophy, and engineering. They can connect a macroeconomic concept with a breakthrough in quantum physics to create an entirely new business model. This cross-pollination allows them to see blind spots and opportunities that deep, narrow specialists completely miss.
Think about the most interesting people you know. They are rarely one-dimensional, right? Because of this massive ambition and intellectual range, these founders develop something the author calls network gravity.
Right.
I want you, the listener, to think about the people you genuinely want to work with in your own lives.
Yeah.
The people who just draw you in with their clarity and their vision. That is network gravity.
It's a pull.
Exactly. Exceptional talent, the best engineers, the brightest researchers who have their pick of literally any high-paying corporate job.
Yeah.
They will actually join these founders before the company even has a product, before it even has a dime of revenue.
Because talent follows gravity.
Yes. Exceptional people want to work on hard problems with other exceptional people.
But if they aren't all concentrated in one geographic location or attending the same alumni mixers, how do we actually find them? This is where the concept of digital campfires comes in.
Digital campfires.
Today, the landscape is beautifully decentralized. Founders are building audiences and communities online, primarily on platforms like X. These platforms act as global idea markets.
Right.
Founders are out there publishing deep research threads, debating incredibly complex ideas in public, and building a dedicated following long before a company is ever officially incorporated.
It's wild to think about. The next Solara, the next trillion-dollar entity that dictates how we live, might not come from a dorm room at Stanford.
Yep.
It might emerge from a university lab in Nairobi, a hacker collective in Buenos Aires, a climate research team in Reykjavik, or even just a group of teenagers experimenting with open-source AI tools in a suburban garage.
The signals are everywhere now.
Exactly. The early signals aren't in private pitch decks. They're happening in these public digital conversations.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, once you have these hyper-ambitious, multidisciplinary founders who have gathered a tribe of brilliant minds around a campfire, how do they actually position their technologies to reach that trillion-dollar Solara scale?
Right. Ambition is great, but structurally, where do they build?
Exactly. This leads us perfectly into a strategic heuristic the author calls the one-layer-above strategy.
I found this to be one of the most practical takeaways from the entire deep dive. The one-layer-above strategy is basically a cheat code for spotting future trillion-dollar companies.
It really is.
You have to look at the technological stack. The most successful startups in history almost always build exactly one layer above the foundational platforms of their time.
Because the foundational platforms do the incredibly heavy, expensive, brutal lifting.
Yes, they spend the billions on infrastructure. Then, the companies built one layer above them scale incredibly fast because their product automatically gets stronger every time the base foundation improves. They are surfing a wave someone else generated.
Let's break down the history of this, because the stack layers of technology perfectly illustrate the point, and it helps us understand exactly where we are right now.
Okay, let's do it.
In the 1990s, the foundational layer was the Internet protocol itself, laying the actual physical fiber optic cables and establishing the basic web.
Right.
The companies built one layer above that foundational plumbing were search engines and portals like Google or Yahoo. Then, in the late 2000s, the foundation shifted. It became the smartphone and ubiquitous mobile broadband.
Apple and the telecom companies.
Exactly. They spent billions building the phones and the cell towers. Built exactly one layer above that were the massive mobile apps like Uber and Instagram. They didn't have to build the phone, they just used its GPS and camera.
Right.
Then the foundation became cloud computing. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure. Built one layer above that were the colossal software as a service, or SaaS, companies like Salesforce or Slack.
So applying that exact historical lens to today, what is the new foundation? The new foundational layer is AI infrastructure. We are talking about the massive billion-parameter foundational models being built by OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google DeepMind.
The new heavy lifters.
Exactly. These companies are spending billions on NVIDIA chips and massive data centers to train the brains. Startups positioned one layer above these capabilities, things like AI co-pilots, for very specific industries like legal or medical.
Autonomous workflow automation for logistics.
Yes, or AI-driven scientific and drug discovery platforms, or highly personalized educational systems. These companies do not have to spend $1 billion training the base model. They just plug into the API and ride the wave.
It's incredible leverage.
It is, as OpenAI or DeepMind makes their foundational models 20% faster and smarter, the startup built on top of it automatically gets 20% faster and smarter overnight, with zero extra effort on their part. Their growth accelerates with every single technological leap made by the giant below them.
It's a brilliant point of leverage. It's how a relatively lean team can achieve planetary scale. But we've been using the term Solara quite a bit, and we've talked abstractly about trillion-dollar impact. It's time we really define the anatomy of a Solara in contrast to the unicorn.
Right.
What does a Solara actually look like in practice, day to day?
Right. A Solara is a trillion-dollar company, but the text is very clear that it's not defined purely by its financial valuation or its market cap on Wall Street. It's defined by its scope.
Scope is the key word.
Here is the vital distinction. A unicorn disrupts an existing industry. It makes an old process cheaper or faster. A Solara transforms the entire fundamental infrastructure of civilization.
That is a huge difference.
Huge. They don't just compete in existing markets to win a 10% market share from a competitor. They create entirely new trillion-dollar markets that simply did not exist before they arrived.
And this reveals a fascinating paradox in business that the author points out. Bigger ambitions often produce bigger opportunities.
Which seems completely counterintuitive, right?
It does. Big ambitions sound riskier. Trying to cure cancer sounds infinitely riskier than building a new dating app. But the world's largest, most existential problems directly correspond to the world's largest potential markets.
Exactly.
And it's not just about wealth creation for venture capitalists. This is about necessity. Humanity in the 21st century absolutely needs Solaras to survive and thrive. We need companies capable of global decarbonization, of engineering drought-resistant food systems to feed 10 billion people, of extending healthy human lifespans, and of safely managing the explosion of artificial intelligence.
You don't solve those with a cute app.
No, you don't.
To really cement this, let's contrast the everyday scale. Unicorn scale is stuff we use every day, and we love it. Photo sharing, ride-hailing to get to the airport, food delivery apps when we're lazy, productivity software for the office. They're great, they're useful, but they operate safely within existing economic structures.
Right.
Solara scale is global energy systems, planetary logistics networks, and food production for billions.
Yeah.
Look at the historical examples of companies that have already crossed the trillion-dollar mark. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA. The source gives a brilliant breakdown of Jeff Bezos and Amazon that blew my mind a little bit.
It is a great case study in disguised ambition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When Bezos started Amazon in the 90s, he didn't pick books because he had this deep romantic love for literature. He picked books out of cold, logical inevitability.
Books were the perfect test subject.
Yes, books had incredible catalog diversity, millions of titles. They were standardized items. A copy of a book in New York is the exact same as a copy in Tokyo. And they had very low storage complexity. They don't rot, they don't spoil, you just put them on a shelf.
Right.
Books were just the Trojan horse. His actual goal from day one was building Amazon's civilizational infrastructure. He used books to figure out warehouse logistics, payment gateways, and shipping routes. Once the tracks were laid, he pushed everything else over them.
And that infrastructure evolved into AWS.
Which literally powers a huge chunk of the modern internet, and a planetary logistics network that rivals national postal services.
Elon Musk and Tesla represent another perfect example of this Solara anatomy. Tesla was never just about selling a cool electric sport car to rich people in California.
No.
Musk positioned it as a fully integrated global energy and transportation system. They aren't just building the cars, they're building the battery storage networks, the solar generation panels for your roof, the global supercharger infrastructure, and the massive AI software required for autonomous driving. They engineered the company for civilizational scale from day one.
So what does this all mean? How do we take this massive abstract concept of a Solara, this trillion-dollar civilizational powerhouse, and apply it to a concrete investable opportunity today?
Right, how do we spot it now?
Well, the author of our source material actually ran a systematic exploration to answer exactly that, leading to a really fascinating case study. He didn't just theorize. He filtered 100 potential AI startup ideas.
100 of them.
Yes, he ran them through a gauntlet of 3 criteria: market size, technological inevitability, and the speed of scalability. He wanted to find the undeniable Solara candidate hiding in plain sight. And what emerged from that filtering process was surprisingly clear, though maybe unexpected at first glance: AI applied to marketing.
I know that sounds like a jarring pivot to a lot of people listening. We just went from talking about global decarbonization and saving humanity to marketing.
Right.
But let's translate why this is a civilizational infrastructure. What's fascinating here is that marketing is often overlooked as a fundamental pillar of society, but it is the hidden giant of the global economy.
It really is.
We're talking about a $2 trillion worldwide budget. Think about what marketing actually is at a macro level. It is the organized allocation of human attention. Where human attention goes, capital follows. Where capital follows, resources are deployed. So optimizing that flow is massive.
Surge.
But despite its $2 trillion size, it operates with shocking inefficiency. The author compares modern marketing to the electrical grid in the late 19th century. It's chaotic, it's highly localized, and every business is essentially running its own little generator, hoping the lights don't flicker. Businesses today are juggling a completely fragmented mess of tools.
Just think about the marketing stack for a modern company right now.
Yeah.
It is a nightmare. You have analytics dashboards over here telling you about web traffic, ad buying platforms over there for Google and Meta, CRM systems holding all your customer email data, content studios trying to create the actual videos and graphics, and influencer marketplaces to manage social media relationships.
And none of it talks to each other perfectly.
None of it. It's all held together with digital duct tape, Excel spreadsheets, and stressed-out account managers. The Solara vision for AI marketing is to take all of that fragmented chaos and turn it into ubiquitous, centralized electricity.
The vision is a unified AI system that doesn't just react to past data, but predicts consumer needs in real time. It would deploy hyper-personalized narratives simultaneously across both digital and physical channels.
We aren't just talking about serving a better banner ad on a website.
No, we're talking about integrating with the Internet of Things, augmented reality retail spaces, and smart city infrastructure. Imagine walking past a digital billboard and the AI, understanding the weather, the time of day, and your anonymized purchasing trends, adjusts the display just for you.
Wow.
In this paradigm, marketing transitions from being a blunt instrument of persuasion, just yelling at people to buy things, to a continuous, seamless, multimodal conversation with the consumer.
Let's slow down and explain the tech converging to make this possible, because it sounds like science fiction, but the pieces are actually already here.
They are.
First, you have large language models. The text-based brains getting exponentially better at understanding context. Second, you have multimodal AI. This means the AI isn't just reading text. It can seamlessly understand and generate language, video, audio, and physical sensor data all at once.
Right.
Third, and this is crucial, you have real-time data streams via edge computing.
Let's pause on edge computing because it sounds like a Silicon Valley buzzword, but it's absolutely vital to understanding this Solara scale.
Yes, let's break it down.
Normally, when you ask your phone's voice assistant a question, that audio data travels all the way to a massive server farm hundreds of miles away, gets processed, and the answer travels back. That takes time and massive bandwidth. Edge computing means the processing brain is literally inside the local device, like the smart billboard you just walked past or the shelves in a grocery store.
It doesn't have to phone home.
Exactly. It doesn't need to ask permission from a central server. It processes the sensor data locally and reacts to you in a literal millisecond.
Exactly. And finally, the fourth piece of this convergence is autonomous AI agents. Instead of a human marketing manager looking at data and deciding to increase ad spend on a Tuesday, fleets of AI agents can independently coordinate workflows.
Yes.
They can buy ad space, tweak creative video assets on the fly, and A/test 1,000 variations in the time it takes a human to pour a cup of coffee.
But here is the massive reality check. Building a system that can process global consumer data in real time, generate multimodal content on the fly, and interface securely with smart city edge computing requires infrastructure on a staggering scale.
Staggering.
Which brings us to a very practical hurdle for anyone trying to build a Solara. How does a startup actually fund a project that requires billions of dollars in global engineering talent from day one?
Right.
If building a simple sauce dashboard today costs maybe $500,000, building advanced robotics, global AI marketing platforms, or biotech systems can cost tens or hundreds of millions right out of the gate before you even have a single customer.
Which brings us to the evolution of venture capital itself and the concept of networked investing. Because the old model of a VC firm sitting on Sand Hill Road, writing a check and waiting for a return just doesn't work for a Solara. Capital is no longer purely financial. Having a big bank account isn't enough anymore. Capital today is deeply relational.
Precisely. The startup ecosystem itself now behaves like a distributed intelligence network. Investors have had to completely rewrite their playbook. Capital is networked. A small venture fund, let's say a $50 million fund, cannot write a billion-dollar check to fund a new nuclear fusion company.
No.
But a small fund with incredibly strong relationships can participate in these massive world-changing opportunities by leveraging their network. They become connective tissue.
Let's translate this into what it actually looks like for a founder trying to raise money.
Mm-hmm.
The tools of modern network capital reflect this entirely. In the old days, a VC firm was like a massive gatekeeper with a giant vault. Today, we're seeing networked capital. Think of it like a highly coordinated flash mob of funding.
I like that.
We're looking at syndicates, where multiple investors, maybe 100 different angel investors who are specific experts in climate science, manufacturing, and policy, pool their small checks together on a deal-by-deal basis.
Right.
We have rolling funds that constantly accept new capital, global investor alliances, and cross-border venture partnerships that span continents. You might have a lead investor in Silicon Valley, but the syndicate includes a sovereign wealth fund from the Middle East and a robotics manufacturing expert in Shenzhen.
It reminds you of the new investor playbook the author laid out, which is a great summary of this whole mindset shift. 1, prioritize ambition over incremental innovation. Stop funding the 100th version of a food delivery app. 2, look for global-scale problem solvers who understand bits plus atoms. And 3, actively engage with those online intellectual communities, those digital campfires where these multidisciplinary ideas are being born.
It's a complete paradigm shift. We are no longer investing in software modes because, as we established in the very beginning, software can be replicated by an AI in a weekend. We are investing in human potential and, frankly, cosmic ambition. We are looking for the people who dare to reshape the physical and digital world simultaneously.
As we wrap up this deep dive, the main takeaway from these sources is crystalline. The tools to build technology have become universally available, they're essentially commoditized, but the vision required to wield those tools at a civilizational scale remains incredibly rare.
So rare.
We have firmly shifted from the era of unicorns, rare magical animals disrupting single siloed industries, to the era of Solaras, massive stars that radiate energy and literally reshape the economic and physical gravitational field of the planet. The fundamental question for an investor, a founder, or just an observer of the economy is no longer, can this startup reach $1 billion? The question is now, could this startup reshape a planetary system?
And as you, the listener, navigate your own career, as you look at your investment portfolio, or even just as you read the daily news, this mental model is vital. Look past the trendy new apps getting a lot of hype on social media. Look past the incremental workflow updates. Start looking for those multidisciplinary teams that are attacking global planetary problems with both bits and atoms. That is where the actual future is being built.
Absolutely.
And before we sign off, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over. Something that builds on everything we've discussed today but takes it one step further into the future. If these Solaras truly become the new operating systems for fundamental human infrastructures, if a single company controls the intelligence layer of our global energy grids, our worldwide education systems, our agricultural supply chains, and our planetary marketing, what does that mean for the future of the nation-state?
That is the real question, isn't it? When a single trillion-dollar star company has more gravitational pull over your daily survival, your food, your power, and your prosperity than your local or even federal government, who really governs the 21st century?
It's a profound question about power, infrastructure, and human organization in the intelligence age. Something to think about the next time you turn on light switch or use an AI tool. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the dawn of the Solara era. Keep questioning your assumptions, keep learning, and no matter what you're building or studying, keep looking for the stars. Until next time.